Wee cow.
Hi.
We were having some technical difficulties that we were having a hard time working through.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. So frustrated.
It's okay.
We learned that apparently if you put the title of your stream into Twitch beforehand, when it comes up live on YouTube, it's whatever the last title of something you put up was.
Who knows?
So you literally have to just delete it and retype it. Okay.
Well, hello.
Okay. So let's. There's so much stuff on the desk right now. Okay. You want to do the intros?
Welcome to the Themes to Be Seen show. Is that how we're...
Keep going. There's more.
Okay.
What's your name?
I'm Tara Kostick.
I'm Matt Klaus. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, Nick.
On our show, we have multiple segments that go through and analyze the art behind music videos and film, sometimes even music. But our seasons consist of segmented portions where we dissect really deep into one particular movie, and we also have segments that are a little more fun. Yeah. Like first let's do some news stuff first because that makes it easy to edit.
Some news stuff?
Yeah, we saw Ghostbusters Afterlife.
Oh, yeah. If you didn't see our video already, we did stream live Friday night, but then
It was like 1
did
a.m.
go through and edit the video because we didn't get home until like after midnight, and we were doing this live stream, and there were so many
We would go
awkward pauses,
we would go,
and I kept yawning. So we did edit the video and we re-uploaded it, but yeah, we definitely recommend going to see Ghostbusters, and it did very well at the box office this weekend.
In other pop culture news, we learned that our favorite baker is no longer with us.
Oh, well, we haven't even watched it yet.
I know, but it was spoiled for the both of us. Way too early.
And we also, this isn't movie related, but it's music related. We did watch the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction ceremony.
Oh, it's so good. If you have HBO Max, go on there, watch the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction ceremony. There are so many, not only great acts, but like the packages that they put together. They'll bring a tear to your eye. There's a couple really cool ones. Gil Scott-Heron inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which most of what people would know from him is just the revolution will not be televised. But he also has another poem that I actually listened to for a long time. That I've heard multiple times, and I kind of listen to it every now and then because it gets me fired up, called Who Will Survive in America. The Go-Go's was really cool.
Oh, yeah. Todd Rundgren was inducted by Patti Smith, but then he didn't show up. But people have pretty much known for years, because he said, if I'm ever inducted, I'm not gonna show up.
Right.
That's just not what he's about. So, but that was still pretty cool.
That's punk rock. To get like the highest honor in your form of music and be like, nah, fuck it.
He's like, I've never been nominated for a Grammy. I've never had a #1 song or album. He's just not into it for like the competition or anything like that.
Which makes sense that he was like, that him and Patti Smith were so close, because that's not what she was ever about either.
And he's just produced so much great stuff for other artists, like the Tubes and Sparks. Well, before Sparks were Sparks.
Before Sparks were Sparks.
Yeah.
Who else? Who else did we say? The Tina Turner thing was awesome. Angela Bassett came out and gave this like super empowered, like passionate speech. Who else? The Foo Fighters is cool. Yeah. Seeing the Foo Fighters get inducted in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame is pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. It was, very diverse because then they also had LL Cool J and Jay-Z.
And the whole time, there was a whole package of people saying Jay-Z lyrics.
Yeah.
And every time somebody would say, and it would cut from one, and it was all celebrities just giving single, lines of verse. And every time they would go to a new person and they'd start talking, I knew exactly what they were going to say next.
Mm-hmm.
So it was pretty cool.
And, Carole King, too.
Oh, yeah.
Although she was inducted by Taylor Swift, and we're both
weird.
Not really big fans of Taylor Swift. But...
My sister is a huge Taylor Swift fan.
Yeah.
Always has been. I'm not, but I guess through her eyes I can see the appeal.
Yeah. It just cracks me up, people, because she just released a 10-minute version of a song.
Yeah.
So all her fans are like, only Taylor can do that. And it's like, have you ever heard of Pink Floyd or prog rock?
Yeah, Crimson King.
King Crimson, you
King
mean?
Crimson. Wait, no, Michael Jackson releasing 10-minute versions of his own songs. Thriller is a 8-minute long song.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I would give that more... Hold up, we have Dyson's right here.
Hi.
He's under the camera. You can't really see him. He's right here. But hellos. You want up? You want
say
up?
Hi.
Oh, here we go.
There he goes.
I would say that's more an age thing, because they've probably never really exposed themselves to Pink Floyd or King Diamond or King Crimson or prog rock, Rush, bands that purposefully, they weren't making 3-minute songs to go on the radio. They were making orchestral, which every once in a while that permeates through to younger people, because ELO recently was a big deal on social media, because younger people were revisiting Mr. Blue Sky, which is actually Mr. Blue Sky is part 2 of a 3-song soliloquy. So you never know. Some of that stuff swings back around.
Yeah. But we are very excited for tonight's episode, because for Scene Again, we watched a movie that was huge in my childhood, and upon rewatching it, I'm wondering why, but not that it's bad, but...
No, it's bad. No, it is.
Not appropriate for children at all.
Not whatsoever.
But you had never seen it.
I'd never seen it, and I purposely didn't take notes just so I could enjoy it.
Mm-hmm.
I could really pay attention to it, because I didn't want to take note, have it be that thing where it's I pause, and then, write this down. I really wanted to enjoy it as a movie the first time I saw it.
Yeah, and the movie we're talking about is The Witches of Eastwick.
Yeah.
And this is a movie from 1987 that was actually directed by George Miller, known most famously for the Mad Max films.
Mm-hmm. This is usually the part where we talk about the cast and what else you would know them from.
Yes.
But if you don't know who Jack Nicholson, Michelle Pfeiffer, Cher, or Susan Sarandon are, welcome to our show. You need to go watch more movies to catch up.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's 4 of the biggest stars of their time in one film right next to each other. And even the supporting cast are are actors and actresses that people now would go, hey, I know them from stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Veronica Cartwright, who always played... For some reason, she always played Crazy Lady. And I think it's her face. She has this very harsh face and these very big eyes. And when she does Crazy Face, it looks really cool.
Yeah, so, despite this big cast, and this movie even came out before Moonstruck, so this was before Cher even won her Oscar, because Moonstruck did come out later in 1987. This movie came out in June, and Moonstruck was released in December, I believe. But despite this big cast, the scene stealers are definitely Jack Nicholson and Veronica Cartwright. And it's to the point where I remember watching this as a kid, and I thought Veronica Cartwright was in it more than she actually is. That's how much she always stood out to me. I used to find her so freaky and revolting in this movie, and then rewatching it, it's like, oh, she's not even in it for that much, but she really did have an impact on me when I was younger. But basically, this was based on a book by John Updike. I have never read the book. I've heard the book is much darker than this, and there were some similarities, like in the book, Daryl has like other affairs with like other people in the town, and well, hello. It is set in Rhode Island, but I believe they actually shot it in Massachusetts just because of the subject matter. The church they wanted to shoot it in, there were like issues and stuff. And
yeah, we want to shoot our movie about witches in your church. Is that cool?
Susan Sarandon, I believe, was the first of the three cast, and she actually had the role of Alexandra, and she did come out a few years ago, and it is now known that Cher kind of stole the role from her.
I feel like Cher fits the role better, though.
Yeah.
Like, I can see Susan Sarandon in that role. Mm-hmm. I just feel like, it's not that Susan Sarandon wouldn't be good for that role. It's just that Cher is perfect for it.
Yeah. So Cher took over the role, and Susan Sarandon didn't know she was recast as Jane until she showed up on set for the first day of filming. But they're like good friends in real life, and they love each other, so there's no bad blood there or anything.
And then we have the immortally beautiful Michelle Pfeiffer's.
Pfeiffer's?
If you're a fan of Key and Peele and you know who the valets are, they're the valets.
Oh, yeah.
The valets did a whole sketch about Michelle Pfeiffer's. Mm-hmm. But Michelle Pfeiffer, who at this time was considered one of the most beautiful women on the planet, mm-hmm. and she absolutely plays this vulnerable role so well. She has this soft face the whole movie long, and it.
So the role of Daryl was originally going to be played by Bill Murray.
That's a different movie. That's a different movie.
But then I guess he dropped out. So then Jack Nicholson heard of the role because at the time he was in a very famous on-again, off-again relationship with Angelica Houston. And they were together at this time. But she auditioned for the role of Alexandra, but she admittedly auditioned very terribly. But she would go on later in a few years to play the Grand High Witch in The Witches, so...
But at this time, Jack Nicholson and Angelica Houston are in a relationship, mm-hmm. which might lead us to film Stay Tuned for Preachy's Honor. Possible film we could do in the future. It's really good. It's like a romantic comedy mob movie. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of fun. Might come up later. Just thought I'd point that out. Has both Jack Nicholson and Angelica Houston.
So then Jack Nicholson heard of this role through her, and it feels almost like it was written for him. This is like him at his most...
Well, it's like him at his most free.
Yeah.
He really does open up and
There's
do
a lot
all
of
the
physical comedy, and
he does all the things. When you think about the things that make Jack Nicholson the actor that we know him as, he does all of those things in this movie. Mm-hmm. The laugh,
yeah,
and the really low rumbly voice. He also had there's a part in the movie where he throws like a little kid temper tantrum, and it's very what you would like what you would like to see from Jack Nicholson in a physical role, like this. He's stomping his feet and he's flipping his robe around, and he's really good at. He's like, this is everything you want from him in this movie.
To think like this came out before like Batman and stuff like this.
I think this may have been a big influence in him getting the Joker role, actually, because there were a lot of similarities in between the two roles.
Mm-hmm. So basically, in this movie, he's playing the devil, and we have the characters. Cher is Alexandra, Susan Sarandon is Jane, and Michelle Pfeiffer is Suki.
Which,
and it's
in the 80s had to have been like an uncommon name.
Yeah. But they're three friends living in this small town in Rhode Island, and they've all lost the men in their lives, and Cher has a daughter, and Michelle Pfeiffer has like 6 kids.
It looks like the village. Her house in this movie looks like a Village of the Damned.
Yeah.
It's just all these tiny, bright, blonde-haired kids walking around in a line.
Yeah, and Susan Sarandon doesn't have anyone. I don't know if she's ever had anyone.
Believes that she cannot have kids.
Yeah.
And she talks about how they do talk about how her divorce is final at the beginning of the film.
But Cher's husband had passed away, and Michelle Pfeiffer's husband had left her because he couldn't deal with all the kids. But and they're witches, but they don't know it.
Witchcraft in this film is not, for most of the film, for 90% of the film, is not portrayed as you would see like in The Craft. Mm-hmm. It's just they manifest things. They think about things they would like to happen and things that they would like to change. And when they do that together, these things happen. Mm-hmm. So when it says Witches of Eastwick, it's only slightly misleading. They're actually like just manifesting these things when they work together. They don't actually cast a spell until 10 minutes left in the movie.
Well, that's why now I'm curious to read the book, because I do wonder if it is explored more in the book, and then more even about the Felicia character, who's played by Veronica Cartwright, because she sees the evil coming and she has these visions, and it's not fully explored in the movie. She just kind of goes
it looks
insane.
Like a possession.
Yeah, it does.
But the devil is in a house having sex with Cher, so he has nothing to do with what's going on with her.
But it's like that he is aware of her, because she's aware of them. Like when she's in the hospital and Michelle Pfeiffer shows up and she's freaking out because she senses the evil, and then that final...
Well, even the accident, what puts her in the hospital, when Suki finally remembers her name and her pearl necklace falls apart.
That's the thing too. So the 3 women, they get together on Thursday nights and they have dinner and stuff, and they're kind of talking about men, and they're imagining like what the dream guy would be, like what they would like to have in a man. And so they attract this Daryl character to the town. Like he's drawn to the town because they're kind of like conjuring him. And when he first shows up, so he buys the Lennox estate, which is this big house in town, and people are meeting him, but no one can remember his name. They're like, he definitely told us his name, but I can't think of it. And so he's buying all of Cher's, I'm going to call them their real names. He's buying all of Alexandra's art that she's made, and then he shows up to Jane's concert recital and buys her flowers, and then Suki is a journalist, and he wants to be interviewed by her specifically.
Can we talk about the concert? Because Jane, the Susan Sarandon's character, is a cellist.
Mm-hmm.
Which, first and foremost, a woman cellist is already an erotic. It's already like underlyingly erotic.
Mm-hmm.
It is a very large masculine item that sits between the instrumentalist's legs, and Jack Nicholson's character actually realistically has no interest in her playing, because she's playing this cello and he has fallen asleep behind the rest of the town, and his snoring sounds like demon noises.
Like
it's
growling.
It's like growling and scratches. Snore is not like normal human snoring. But then once it's over, he stands up and he's yelling and he's cheering, bravo, bravo, even though there's no way he heard any of that. He was sleeping.
But yeah, so before we even get there, I think there's like this big gathering, and everyone is they're talking about him, and no one can remember his name, and then Suki finally remembers it, and her pearl necklace like breaks, and then everyone else remembers because it's like the spell has suddenly been lifted, and all the pearls just go everywhere, and Felicia slips and she falls down these stairs and breaks her legs. The most awful things happen to this character.
She sits up and goes, I think I've broken my leg.
Clyde, I think I broke my leg.
Which Clyde, played by Richard Jenkins, who everybody now knows who Richard Jenkins is because he had such an iconic role as the dad in Step Brothers. So if you've seen Step Brothers, you know that the gentleman playing Clyde is Richard Jenkins. He's an easy face to remember.
But I guess like because at one point Clyde says like he went to high school with Felicia and she was a catch back in the day, and we even see that she's kind of a big deal in town because she's singing at this
like 4th of July
thing.
And
as soon as she finds out the Lennox estate is being sold, she's really upset, and there's these birds that nest there, and she's
the snowy egrets.
Yeah. She's really concerned about them, and that's why now I'm curious to read the book, because I'm wondering if there's more of like a backstory to her, like more fleshing out about these visions she has, or why she's chosen to be this
that is one part of the movie.
Sees the evil.
Generally, especially George Miller, is good that if he doesn't outright explain something, you still understand it. I think this was outside of his, because if you watch the Mad Max films, there's a lot that's not explained, but you understand it. I feel like he tried to do that here, and there just wasn't enough for him to put in there to pull it off.
Yeah, because then it's getting to the point, so she breaks her leg, and she starts spewing, like, vile things that embarrass her husband, things about the evil is in town, and one of the doctors explains that the bone marrow from her broken leg is like
releases fatty tissue into her bloodstream that somehow finds it to her brain. Don't worry, it'll dissolve, but it'll make her weird for a while.
Yeah, so I don't know, it's very strange, but yeah, like they go to church and she starts losing it and going off about the whores in the Lennox estate.
She goes off about, you guys have no idea what's going on in that house.
Yeah.
It's murder and rape and incest, and you're like, ooh, she's in a church.
And then there's like lawsuits and stuff filed against like Daryl.
Which that is explained, but it's kind of throwaway.
Yeah.
Because he tore down part of the house and expanded the area to put in this insane swimming pool we see multiple times. It's not even a swimming pool. It's a room that he's taken the floor out of and filled with water. Like, it's insane.
So, there are, the scenes that I always remembered the most as a kid were, like, Well, the first, like, the love-making scenes, like, the way he seduces the women, and then, of course, the cherry-eating scenes.
The cherry-eating scene's pretty messed up, actually.
They're really disgusting, but, basically, they do eat a lot of cherries, and then Felicia's character starts vomiting them up.
Okay, so it's explained later in the movie, but he has a doll or a totem of Felicia in the bottom of the bowl. They have this giant bowl of cherries, and they keep eating the cherries and then spitting the pit back into the bowl.
Yeah.
And so there's some sort of totem or representation of the Felicia character in the bottom of the bowl, but neither us nor the three witches are shown that. It's something Daryl has done on his own.
Yeah.
So you are shown how it works later in the movie.
But there is also a scene that really affected me as a kid. It's the scene. I told him about this beforehand because he thinks it's hilarious.
It is
but
funny. But I laughed at the line. And then you were like, and then you told me, and I was like, that makes it even funnier.
So there is a scene where, so Susan Sarandon's character has the most physical and personality change because she's finally involved with a man. So now he kind of does become everything to her, and like her hair is different.
Well, that's one of the things I wanted to talk about. The differences.
She starts dressing differently, so she's at the supermarket just kind of strolling around in this like tight dress, and this is where she picks up the newspaper and sees like the Lennox estate scandals, and the women around her are just staring at her, and one calls her a slut. And so she goes to leave, and one of them is like, she's not even wearing a bra. And me watching this as a little girl, I'm like, oh, if I grow up and I don't wear a bra, I'm a slut. Like, is that what a slut is? Someone that doesn't wear a bra?
Which,
and that stayed with me for years. And now I'm like, I just remember watching this, like, a lot as a kid, and, it's so funny to me, like, rewatching it because, like,
she had said
the language in it and all the sexual scenes.
She had been building this movie up as a movie she watched over and over as a kid, and then it gets to the scene where the Daryl character is trying to seduce Cher's Alexandria character, and he goes, "You're gonna fuck me," and I was like.
I'm like,
you watched this? I was like, watched this as a kid? But that is one of the things I wanted to talk about, because he uses the personal insecurities of each of the three women characters, not so much to seduce them, but manipulate them. Like, he turns them into the opposite of what they are, instead of the best version of what they should be. Like, he uses everything he understands about them against them, and it's really interesting to see how he does it, because this film, even though directed by a man, addresses the shittiest parts of men. The way he, quote-unquote, seduces Alex is actually more about misogyny. He doesn't seduce her. He tears her down, because she is a very confident person in herself, and you see that earlier in the film. She's a sculptor, and she's a successful sculptor because she must be a successful sculptor, or this is a Hollywood movie, because how else would a sculptor be able to afford a lake house with a full grand fireplace in it? Hollywood will deceive you on what you can get. But she is strong in herself, and instead of,
because she insults him first.
Yes.
And then it's like he does it right back to her, and...
But there's the scene where he's walking in circles around her, and he is just tearing her apart, and you see the tears roll down her eyes, and that's the moment... And there's a moment where she turns and she's really mad at him, and he smiles, and he realizes that it's not so much that he seduced her, he broke her. it's done way more intelligently than you think this film would deserve.
Yeah.
That's just like the Susan Sarandon character. She's very in control. She's very conservative. She's wearing she's a teacher, so she's always wearing like very conservative clothing.
She's always watching her calories.
She doesn't speak very loud. Oh yeah, that's addressed when because there's a part in their Thursday night dinner scene where Michelle Pfeiffer is spraying Easy Cheese on one cracker, and she does like a Leaning Tower of Cheese thing before she shoves it in her mouth. And Susan Sarandon says, don't eat too much of that. You don't know how many calories are in one of those. Mm-hmm. And like Cher doesn't have a line there, but the face she gives her is great because she goes, what? Like...
That's one thing that really worked in this movie, too, is the chemistry between all three of them, because
they're great.
Initial scenes, the way they're interacting and joking around and stuff, it's so natural, and
you truly feel like they're friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, like you watch it and the inner you says it's a movie, but as you're watching it, you go, oh no, they really look like friends here.
Like, we just have an old DVD copy of it, but
yeah,
I hope...
The rip on the DVD that we have looks like it was ran through cheesecloth. It does not look great.
I hope that, like, it is re-released with, like, special features and stuff, and I do wonder if there would be, like, bonus scenes that would kind of add more.
Which would make sense because there's some stuff that we'll get into that there's some continuity errors that just kind of stick on through the movie. Mm-hmm. But, what did you just say? Yeah, or at least a Blu-ray that remastered the way it looks. Mm-hmm. Because the first 5 minutes especially don't look good at all. It looks like if we were to sit apart and the camera was trying to like focus back. There it goes. Oh, see how it goes nasty? That's what the whole movie looked like when we started watching it. It was bad.
Because the town that they shot in looks really picturesque and stuff.
It looks beautiful,
and,
yeah.
There are some special effects towards the end that don't look...
Well, there's even some special effects there's some special effects in the beginning that look like what they should look like. Because this is the type of movie that doesn't exist anymore. Mm-hmm. There used to be a type of movie that was a mid-budget film. They're not giving you big blockbuster numbers. Because now there's either huge blockbusters or indie films, and there's nothing in between. Mm-hmm. There used to be this type of movie that they'd come out consistently throughout the year, every once in a while. Like every other month, you'd get one of these movies that was about mid-budget. It's like, it wasn't a huge amount of money, but it was enough to make a decent movie on. And some of the special effects, you get some miniatures, you get some matte paintings, there's some filter effects, but nothing like super grandiose, especially in like the grand finale. Even the special effects in that final big showdown, they're not bad, but they are subtle. Which we'll get to one of those that I'll point out. But
that's what I'm trying to figure out. So it did have a budget of $22 million, and it did make $63.8 million at the box office.
Right,
so,
mid-budget. They didn't hand him a ton of money.
And it was recognized. I think it was nominated for like 2 Academy Awards for like the production and stuff like that. And Jack Nicholson actually won like a New York Critics Best Actor award for this. So it was like a very recognized movie. And
Jack Nicholson at that time could have shot a video on video. He could have shot a movie on video of himself talking in a mirror, and he would have got an award for something, because he was just great. Like, there was a good 10 years there where Jack Nicholson was greatness.
Yeah. And I think another reason I must have loved watching this as a kid too is it does move pretty quickly. Like, it's a well-paced movie.
And it's not there's a little bit like at the end of the second act that just drags a little bit. And you even looked over and you were like, "Are you dozing off?" And I was like, "No." But that was probably more on
like,
me.
The last 20 minutes do kind of get a little out there. Like, it's a little crazy. But it's like Jack Nicholson is truly like unraveling, and there's this really great church scene because the girls are trying to make him go away again, so they make a little like
a totem doll,
and so he's like being blown away in the street, and he gets blown into the church. And so he's giving this like big monologue about the creation of women and how the creation of women must be one of like God's big mistakes. Oh, Nick said there's a Blu-ray on Amazon of Witches of Eastwick, but I have no clue if it's a better scan or if they just tried to upscale the DVD scan. I feel like it is probably just an upscale because I've never heard of like an actual like new release of it.
Yeah, I haven't either.
And I would love to see like an audio commentary or interviews or something.
Unless the word remastered is on there.
I have no idea. I've never actually seen it. Like, we were lucky to find this copy at Media Reload.
This is from one of our, just digging through the trash.
Because I was so excited when we found it.
I
was like, I have not seen this.
Eastwick! And I went,
like, I haven't seen it since I was a kid, and I was so excited.
I know that this was one of the VHS tapes we had up at the cabin.
Yeah.
But
I feel like it was it was a big movie, like, back then, and it just kind of dropped off.
Well, that's what you'll see with a lot of those mid-budget movies, that some of them were really great, but because they were never like the big blockbuster film, they were kind of more likely to be forgotten over time.
And I think there were a few like television series, like there was an Eastwick series a few years ago.
Oh, yeah. Was that just like a television series of this?
I don't know. I know it had like Rebecca Romaine in it. I think Virginia Madsen was in one of the seasons.
Okay, one of the cool like pieces of symbolism about the film, as I was explaining the different ways he seduces each different one, because he brings out this passionate part, because Alexandra's power shown through the film is she has this enhanced power of manifestation. She can really make things happen. Jane's is that she can control passion. She can control like the human emotion, the art and the beauty that can come out of human emotion. And then the Suki character has control. She can control physical time and space. Like, she physically can control how things are moving through the air.
And she does seem like the one that seems to kind of impress him the most. Like, in the pool scene, she's kind of leaving him speechless, because she's like, well, how are you gonna seduce me? And he's like, yes. And she's like, how? And he's like, I don't know.
No, she goes, how? And he goes, I haven't figured that out
He's
yet.
been practicing his Nicholson impression.
But like week, the scene with Cher, where he's walking around in a bathrobe with a safari hat on, because this character gives zero shit. He's obnoxious. They don't make Jack Nicholson attractive at all in this movie.
They even imply that he's not supposed to be.
He's ugly.
Yeah.
Like
there's even a thing that he smells bad, because Cher does say that he smells, and then there's scenes too where he'll just be walking and you can hear like flies buzzing, and then when he's walking closely with Michelle Pfeiffer and she's kind of crinkling her nose and he's like, is that your perfume? And then you hear like flies buzzing, and then Even that scene where he shows up to the church and everyone's just kind of repulsed by him.
Well, by that time, he's starting to unravel, and he's, like, completely,
Yeah.
like, he looks completely different.
Oh, let's talk about his aide.
Well, I was
Oh, go
working,
off.
I'm getting
Okay.
there. But there's also the scene where he first meets Alex, and there's a good, like, old-style joke where he's walking around in a bathrobe and a safari hat with these tiny binoculars. And he says, "Have you seen any snowy egrets?" And she goes, "I think first he asks her if she wants lunch, and she avoids the question. And then he asks her if she's seen any snowy egrets. And she goes, "You're a little late in the season." And he turns around and goes, "For lunch?"
Mm-hmm.
And I said, I've never seen this movie before in my life. I gave that punchline with him because I was so ready for it. Like, it hit so well, and it was satisfying. Yes, Karel Struken. What's his last name?
I don't know. Let me look it up.
I'm close.
But he...
Most people would know him as Lurch from the Addams Family films with Raul Julia.
Another tie with Angelica Houston because she would go on to play Morticia.
But yes, he plays the Daryl character's manservant. He's super tall, but in this he wears like very like Middle Eastern clothing. His name's Fidel.
Karel Stricken, yeah.
I was close.
Oh, and then Daryl has a dog that just kind of shows up in one scene, and then you do see him the rest of the time. But initially, we don't.
I don't think it's anybody's dog because he doesn't really like Daryl. Yeah, he doesn't really like Daryl. So you'd think if the devil had a dog, it would be like a familiar. So I'm thinking it's the lady's dog because at the end he's kind of helping them.
I might have to rewatch it again because I don't remember
I feel like
seeing him.
No, he just kind of shows up.
Yeah.
Yep. And which you see dogs all over in the movie, like in the
Yeah.
background.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk about this end sequence because. Yep. Let's talk about this end sequence. They create this totem made of wax. They use Alex's sculpting skills to make a totem, which she purposefully makes a totem with a crooked penis.
Yeah, that's another thing in the movie too, because
she actually says that he has like a misshapen penis. And then later when they make this totem, she purposefully sculpts it to have...
Yeah, again, this is not a movie appropriate for children. There is a lot of talk about sex and the size of men... because these are grown women.
Well,
these are like real life
but
conversations.
Also, there are conversations when Jack Nicholson is doing it. He's doing it almost in a degrading way to Alex. Like he's purposefully being vulgar to her face because that's how you manipulate someone who thinks they're strong. Is you really confront them with things that make them uncomfortable, and it's almost like he's brainwashing her. So he starts talking about the size of Fidel's penis and just being extremely vulgar. And when she is taking Suki to meet Daryl, she mentions that he has a misshapen penis. So when they make this little doll, it's got like a... Okay, but they burn things of his. They burn a pair of his underwear and hair out of his comb and a picture of him, and then they fill the doll with that.
And then there's that scene where Michelle Pfeiffer is running to the other room and she grabs this book out of a case.
Oh, it's the actual, yeah.
Yeah, that book had never been, like, mentioned
No,
previously.
which you'd think it would have.
Yeah, because they're aware of what it is, and then
it
seems like a significant thing.
It's locked in a glass case. I feel like there's a lot of this movie that got cut out.
That's why I really want to read the
because
book now.
Also earlier in the film than we're already talking about, there's a part where the Suki character answers... Daryl's trying to get Suki to answer the door, and she answers the door, and she has marks on her face.
At first, I thought maybe she was eating.
Like she had something that she was eating in her hand.
Comfort eating, because at this point they had all kind of broken up with him because Felicia had passed away, and
is brutally murdered by her husband.
But I do like the way they handled that, because so she died, and they do truly feel bad about it. They feel responsible, so they start staying away from Daryl, and they're aware of.
Well, he starts torturing them.
Yeah. They're aware of the effect that they're having on the town, and they truly feel bad that she died, because this was someone that they knew, like someone that lived in their town. And so I do like the way that they handled that. So I initially thought like maybe she was comfort eating, but then the sores are still there in other scenes. The sores are there
up until that scene, the scene where they send him out. Oh, because it's shown that they are each and every one of them is pregnant by him from within a couple days of each other.
But, okay, so earlier on in the movie, when they're all, like, getting along, and Jack Nicholson is recording them, and he asks each one of them what they're afraid of. And so at this point, when he feels abandoned by them, he's rewatching the video. He has this big monitor with all these different screens.
It's a very 90s thing of like 100 TV, and they don't all show one picture. It's just 100 TVs that show the same picture, which was a big thing in the 90s. I don't know why people kept doing it.
Yeah, but Susan Sarandon goes to the hospital because she's been feeling sick, and she finds out that she's actually pregnant, and she's very excited about it. So she goes back to Daryl, and she's the first one to go back to him since they all like left him. And so she's kind of sneaking up on him because she wants to surprise him, and she sees Daryl
casting
is
spells.
Like he's slumped in this chair.
He's snorting, where he's doing the weird noises again, like he was in the church.
And he's rewatching the video of each of them explaining their fears, and Jane is up on the screen, and she's talking about how she's, like, disintegration or disappearance or getting old, and so she sees her hands, like, get old, and then we do see a quick glimpse of her face
as an older woman.
Really old.
Yes.
So she runs out, and she sees Alexandra on the screen next talking about like a fear of snakes, and so she runs out, and then Alexandra wakes up, and her bed is just full of snakes, and she runs outside, and Jane is out there, and then Suki's fear is feeling pain, and so
Suki's fear, that as she explains it, because he kind of twists all this. When Jane says disintegration, she actually means like the disappearance of her own self. When and I feel like Alex means the same thing, but she means it like being crushed by the by pressures. And then when Suki describes her fear, she says that she's not really scared of dying. She's more scared of the pain of life. So, like, the trials and tribulations that we go through, she seems to always be going through those, and she's just sick of them. But he twists that into being physical pain. Multiple times in the film, he's shown eating passion fruit. There are all these passion fruits.
He loves fruit.
No, passion fruits in particular.
Yeah.
Because he takes... That's what he tries to take Suki, is a basket of passion fruit. He goes, it's my favorite fruit. Which, again, there's a little bit of Jack Nicholson physical comedy there, where he goes to, like, step on him, but the basket gets stuck on his foot.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. But he takes this passion fruit, and he cuts it open. And he's basically, like... We see Suki go,
making
ow.
her hemorrhage inside.
Yeah, she goes, ow, and she sits down, and then she goes, that hurt. And as she runs her hand across her face, like, she just covers her face in blood, and it only gets worse.
Yeah.
She goes to the hospital. It's actually pretty it's effective. It's sad to watch.
So they find out they're all pregnant, and in order to save Suki, Alex goes back to him, and he's like, I just want us all to be a family again.
This is a very Shining-esque conversation with him.
Yeah, because he's spinning in circles. And
this is the little kid temper tantrum I was talking about, where he's stomping his feet and he's throwing stuff, and but it's like the best Jack Nicholson you could ask for, because he is overacting, and when Nicholson does that, you get when he has, it's just the way he is as a person. When he overacts, it's dramatically perfect. So I really did like this.
It makes sense to the story. He's the devil, but he does feel like he's been neglected. He's been taking care of these women and giving them everything they wanted, and in return, he also wants to be taken care of, and he's impregnated these women, and that was something Felicia saw, which, strangely enough, all of her outbursts were about, like, these loose women in town, and then right before she dies, she's like, I gotta tell them, I gotta warn them, like, he's gonna, like, plant seeds in them to continue to spread his evil around the world. So then it's kind of like, oh, like, is she gonna reach out to them? But sadly it never comes to that, but it's like she suddenly sees the light, but at that point it's too late. Her husband has been
he kills her with a fire poker.
She's embarrassed him so much in town, and
I feel like that murder is shot tastefully, because you don't really hear anything.
It's like it shows the outside of the house, and you kind of see
like a shadow
and you hear the
but not even loudly. Like it's like a faint noise, and you can't even really see what the shadow is doing. You just see a shadow moving. It could have been somebody on the other side of that blind going like this. You know what I mean? Yeah. But I feel like it was the correct way to shoot that particular incident. And so they come to the conclusion that in order to save Suki, they all have to go back to him.
Yeah, but then so they have like one last romantic night, and then they send him into town to get like bagels
and ice cream.
Yeah, and while he's out, this is when they start like plotting. They get everything together to make the little figure, and
no ice cream, huh?
Yeah.
I guess I'm gonna have to find somewhere else then. And he's just so shitty to this dude about not having, because like the freezer's broken, so he's like, no ice cream, huh? All right. Guess I'm just gonna have to find it somewhere else.
So he's in town and he's experiencing all this pain and stuff, but he knows what's happening. He knows it's the ladies doing it because he taught them these tricks, and so he is kind of turning animalistic. Like, we see his hands and stuff, and his nails are longer, and
there's a part where he has and it's a quick shot, because once they show it from out here, but then once it shows his face straight on again, it's gone, but he's got like an underbite with tusks from far away. So he has a big like beastly foot.
So he goes back to the house, and
he's chasing him around, and he's doing magic-y magic. He's blowing stuff around with mind powers, and the roar that they play is kind of cool. He almost kills Suki. He throws her off a balcony, and she falls.
That's Jane.
No, I thought it was Suki, because they tell her to laugh.
That's Jane that's laughing, and it's Suki that starts laughing, because they realize if they laugh, they can, like, kind of fly around.
Yeah, but it's this, because it's something that they'd done earlier, and I can't remember what it was. It's slightly explained in, like, a throwaway line.
It was the scene with the pool, because, the scene with all the balloons, and he's, like, wheeling them around on carts, and he kind of pushes, Jane a little too hard into the room with the pool, and she goes flying, and she's hanging from the chandelier,
and they're all laughing at her,
and then they start like floating, so then she kind of lets go.
And that's another thing.
Yeah.
He's shown taking in all 7 of 2 of their kids. Like, the kids are now live with them there.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's this thing that when he first lets Suki's kids in, this giant stairwell is full of these pink balloons, and they're allowed to run through these balloons to get up the stairs.
Mm-hmm.
It's so picturesque and so well shot. Like, I was impressed by some of the shooting in this movie. And I mean, and then it's George Miller, like, you shouldn't be impressed because the guy who made Road Warrior and Fury Road, and you're like, all right, I shouldn't be impressed.
But yeah, there's things like thinking back now, like that scene where they're first flying, and then even like Daryl's like, oh wow, they're not human. Like, I just really want to read the book now. And
I feel like he came to them because they had this power.
They drew him to the town.
Right, and then he was drawn to them because they have the power. Mm-hmm. But I don't think he realized the extent to which it went.
Yeah.
Which explains the ending of the film more.
Because then it's like, did he really believe in witches? Because he was explaining to Jane in that one scene, because it is mentioned that the Lennox estate, they burned witches. A lot of women there, like witches, and he's telling her it was actually like midwives and stuff.
I feel like he's telling her that to convince her that witches aren't real.
I don't know.
Because his whole point is to take their power away. He has to make them believe he's more powerful. Mm-hmm. Because I think he's scared of them.
But at that point, they don't even know that about themselves.
But he does.
So,
you know?
I don't know. It's just...
It's a cool thing to talk... Yeah. That's one of the reasons we do this, is because it's cool to go back and talk about these.
Like, I really want to find the book and read it and then rewatch it. And if there are any, like, deleted scenes or, like, a remastered DVD, I would love to see, like, if there were any deleted scenes or anything
and
like
it ends
that.
with the 3 boys are born, and they all still live in the Lennox estate, in this very picturesque, Richie Rich type communal estate, where all 3 families live together now, and he's still shown to be a problem because he's still trying to lure the boys around the house. He's shown on the giant TV wall trying to talk to the boys, but they're aware of it. Like, they're shown turning the TVs off.
Yep.
So that's the end of the film. It's fun. It's really good. There's obviously some deleted footage that makes some continuity errors, but I still had so much fun. You can't put 4 powerhouses in a film like that and it not be good unless you have a completely incompetent director. But then you take those 4 powerhouses and go, oh yeah, it's directed by George Miller, who's competent even when he's not doing his own work. So it is a good movie. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, I'm honestly surprised it's not more well known.
It's also extremely erotic.
Yes.
When they first start showing the Lennox estate, he's put up this artwork, and it's very amoebus artwork. It's very Rorschach-like, but it's erotic. It's not like blatantly a piece of anatomy, but you look at it and go, I know what that is. I know.
Or like the scene when they reunite for their like last romantic night, and he walks into the bedroom and they're all like in their lingerie, and Susan Sarandon is kind of like
she's sitting on the bedpost and she's
like thrusting against.
Even when he first like awakens Jane's powers, and there is a full 30 seconds of him opening her knees with his hands, and I knew what he was gonna do, but the first time you watched that movie in
1987.
In 1987, if you were to see this in the theaters and he's opening her knees like that, you're like, whoa! I knew that he was gonna put the cello there, because that's what he was gonna. He had just gotten done playing Paganini's Third Street, which, if you know the backstory of that song or that composition, Paganini had told the entire country of Russia that composition, his Third Stripe, was given to him by the devil, which is why it's such a famous piece of music. It was also referenced recently in the Red Tide half of American Horror Story, where the little girl had taught herself to play Paganini, and she had looked at someone and said, "Yeah, you have no idea, because what I just played, 3 men in Russia committed suicide because they couldn't do it."
Yeah.
So that's the same song that he was playing there.
We completely forgot to mention the music. The music in this movie was composed by John Williams.
John Williams, which if you listen to it, you hear pretty much, I mean, it's John Williams all over. I mean, it's it's what he does in every movie. It's these high, like, flowing, like, almost sounds like wind violins. You hear quite a bit of what someday you'll hear on Hocus Pocus's score. I know I don't think John Williams did that.
I don't think so, but there is actually a line where Jack Nicholson says
Hocus Pocus. Yeah. So I feel like there's...
Really, Dyson?
That's going in a clip show.
Oh, goodness.
Is it broken?
No.
It's fine then. He just ran away.
Yeah, he's freaked out now.
Good.
All right, so...
Next.
That was The Witches of Eastwick.
The Witches of Eastwick. I had a lot of fun.
Yeah. I still can't believe I watched that a lot as a child. But...
I can't either. Where were your parents? No. Okay. Now, Themes to Be Heard this week is one of my personal favorites. And we have 3 viewers, and I know one of them is sick of this song.
And what song is that?
2014's Run the Jewels song, Close Your Eyes and Count to Fuck. Featuring Rage Against the Machine vocalist Zach De La Rocha. This is one of my favorite songs ever because it combines 2 of my favorite artists ever. I love Run the Jewels and I love Rage Against the Machine. And Zach has actually worked with Run the Jewels twice now. It would be on this song, and last year they came out with Run the Jewels 4, which had a song called Just. And he's also on that.
So in 2015, they released this It was noted by many to be the most powerful music video of the year.
Pitchfork called it incendiary.
It is a video that...
I tear up every time I watch it.
It's a reflection of police brutality and race relations, which this came out in 2015.
Which was actually slightly before Ferguson.
Yeah, still, like... prevalent to this day, too.
The song was made before Ferguson. And the video came out after Ferguson. So when people accused it of kind of baiting, they were like, we made that way before that happened. So it's more life, really, us telling you how it really is, and then you seeing it.
So it was directed by A.G. Rojas? Rojas?
Yeah.
Starring Lakeith Stanfield and Shea Wiggum. Lakeith Stanfield was in one of our previous episodes of Get Out. He was in that movie.
Go back, listen to our earlier audio episodes of... which I'm actually... Now that I know how to do it, I might go through and remaster all those. Because I know how to make them better now. But... Lakeith Stanfield recently has an excellent starring role in The Harder They Fall. He plays this really cool, like, left boyfriend role in The Night After. You remember about the 3 girls? which that's movie is the reason Lizzo's famous.
He was also in the starring role in it was Sorry to Bother You.
Oh my god, that movie is insane.
Yeah.
And I would say stay tuned. I would say that that's a stay tuned, but I don't think we have the time. That movie is a lot, and I love it. It's fantastic, and everything that it talks about it hits on. But man, is it a lot.
Mm-hmm. And then Shea Wiggum, I don't even know if I'm saying his name right.
I believe it's Wingham, but the idea that there's a cop named Wiggum and we're not making Simpsons references is killing me.
He has been in a lot. I always think of him from Boardwalk Empire. He played Steve Buscemi's cop brother on that. Was he in The Shape of Water?
He was. He was one of the other... He wasn't... He was like the decent person to Michael Shannon's monstrous FBI agent. Mm-hmm. He's one of those character actors that he shows up twice a year in something, and he's always a solid actor, but I don't feel like he's ever been a lead ever. Mm-hmm. Like, he's never had a big leading role, but he's always solid as... Mm-hmm. Like a supporting actor.
Yeah. So basically this music video is...
It's all black and white.
It's shot in black and white. And...
The first thing you see is Lakeith Stanfield's... Which they're called black... When you look on IMDb, it's credited as Black Man and Cop. Mm-hmm. So you see Black Man wake up and he sits up in his bed, and then it cuts straight to the street. Well, after we see, like, there's a walking shot of LP.
I just realized we have not been using our photos at all.
Oh, damn!
I had so many Witches of Eastwood pictures.
Well, I'm sorry, and I forgot to. We had so many technical difficulties before the show.
Yeah.
That it's kind of a bummer that just happened.
We have some photos that kind of show what the music video looked like, and I'm so sorry we didn't have any of the Witches of Eastwick photos up.
We need to, start a Discord so we can put all our pictures up on a Discord so people can see them later. Because it would be cool to have a Discord for the show. Bloop. There. Now we got some Run the Jewels pictures. Then we got... Okay, so we have, oh man, I just love them so much. They're two of my favorite people on the planet. We have, Zach De La Rocha, LP, and Killer Mike, which the history of this group spans decades. So Killer Mike actually started his rap career, oh, that's a good picture, in the 80s. Like, he was one of those rappers that you would see, like, in the Kangol jacket with big old rope chain back in the day. He's been around since the early Def Jam days. LP started as one of the, these lyrical rappers. There's a whole subset of rap that really tried to push the English language as far as it could go. So you have guys like A$AP Rock, who don't have a huge following, but when you look at his lyrical content, it's so dense, because the lyrics are so densely manipulated that it, God, that picture, doesn't lend itself to melodic song. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So LP used to be a member of that community, because LP worked with A$AP Rock a lot, and most of the time when you listen to that kind of music, you have to be reading the lyrics for it to be impressive. And then Zach De La Rocha. If you don't know who Rage Against the Machine is, you've been living under a rock for the past 30 years. But Zach is one of the first people to take hip-hop lyricism and meld it to hard rock music. And that's where we got Rage Against the Machine. What all three of them have always had in common is this... far left-wing, like, very socially conscious form of music that all three of them have always done. Killer Mike actually worked with Chuck D a lot in his early years. And when Run the Jewels got together, which is LP and Killer Mike, they really wanted that to be the center point of their music, which you hear through every Run the Jewels album, which Run the Jewels albums are just named RTJ 1, 2, 3, and 4. So if you're talking to a Run the Jewels fan and you go, oh, what album is that on? And they say 3. It's just on RTJ 3. Like, they don't name their albums. Which leads us to this video in particular. Because I feel like before this, nobody... Like, this is the thing that got them more attention to get to the point where they are now. Because the thing that really blasted them out into the big public sphere was when their song Legend Has It was used for the... not gonna tear up! The original Black Panther trailer. This was the only thing before that. So we see them, the three of them walking, and then we see Black Man wake up, and then it instantly cuts straight to the street. There's no context of how they got there. There's no context of how long they've been there. They're just there, and they know that they are opposing.
So the director did come out, and basically the point of the video is that these two characters, they've already fought their ways past their judgments, and they've learned hatred toward one another. Our goal was to highlight the futility of the violence, not celebrate it. So basically, we're seeing these two complex characters that we don't know anything about just fighting. And it is an aggressive video, but there's no weapons. We don't actually see any punches being thrown.
Which Cop has a gun, and neither of them reaches for it.
But they're both clearly exhausted.
The whole time. And they were tired before we got there. I'm not gonna cry. They see each other, and Black Man tries to run away, and Cop says, hey, stop right there. Those are the only two spoken lines, or that's the only spoken line, I believe, in the entire video. And then there are these times where you're watching them, and it's not so much a fight as it is just a struggle. Because like you said, there are no punches thrown. Nobody really hits anybody. So
they're
there's
kind of just like hanging on to each other a lot too, or they're just laying next to one another.
And then there are moments where it looks like they're hugging.
Yeah.
Where they're holding each other, and there are these moments of like, and then they realize, wait, and they start like at it again. And it goes from the street into a house, which again, when you want to talk about symbolism, those things that happen on the streets get brought home. Whether it be one man's home or the other man's home, it goes home eventually. Which there's kind of a little funny moment. There's kind of a giggle where the one guy reaches in the fridge and he pulls out the milk, and you think he's going to drink it, but he's just pouring it on himself because he's so exhausted. And then the other guy runs in and he takes it from him, and then he starts pouring it on himself. It's a little chuckle in a really serious video where this struggle works its way upstairs. It's not like they go up the stairs and start again. They are literally, the entire time, they're literally just grappling with each other. And it looks tiring, and they're sweating, and like there's scenes like this where they just can't anymore, but then they keep doing it.
And it ends with them both on the bed, and basically they know they're gonna wake up the next day and have to do it all over again.
But they lay down and fall asleep on the same bed. It's an extremely powerful statement that when it all ends, we all lay down the same way.
Mm-hmm.
No man leaves this life laying on a different kind of bed than the other man. So, while the struggle is relevant, it doesn't mean... While the struggle is relevant, it also is harmful to everyone.
Mm-hmm.
It's an excellent video. It's an excellent song. LP is responsible for the beat of it, which is iconic because most of the time, whenever you hear Run the Jewels, you hear Zach De La Rocha and this very cut up, run the jewels fast, run the jewels fast, and it's what a lot of people think of when they think of them.
Mm-hmm.
I truly think that this should go up as one of the most influential music videos, at least of our time, just because it's simple, and while you're watching it, it goes by so fast. But everything you see means so much. Every little bit of that struggle of them, there's times where they're hugging each other, or there's one moment where they're just holding on to like the lapel section of each, and they're just staring at each other. And they're just like holding, and they're not like tugging, they're not pushing, they're just holding and staring at each other, and it's so intense.
Mm-hmm.
AJ Rojas, or AG Rojas,
Mm-hmm.
I wrote it incorrectly, has also directed videos for Skrillex, Calvin Harris, and Jack White.
Mm-hmm. What was that? The 16 Saltines or something?
Yep.
Saltines.
Yep. Bunch of crackers.
Mm-hmm.
She's gonna get sick of those someday. All right. Now that may have been a quick themes to be heard segment, but I really do want to encourage everyone to go watch the video.
Mm-hmm.
Watch it twice. Really pay attention to what these two guys are doing and the way that they're interacting. It's powerful. So, next.
All right.
Down to the nitty gritty, the meat and the potatoes of our show. The reason we're all here.
So
I'm buying time so I can find the thing.
On last week's episode, our what word am I looking for? Oh gosh. So last week's episode where we left off analyzing
protagonist.
It Follows. No, none of those. We left off with our characters finding out that Hugh is not actually Hugh. His name is Jeff.
That little bastard.
And we found where he lived. And basically he was telling Jay to pass it on to somebody else, and that if she needs time to think about it, to drive off someplace far away to buy some time. But no matter where she goes, it's gonna follow, and it's gonna come straight for her. So, where we start off tonight, our characters leave Jeff's house, and we're driving, and it's nighttime. And Greg, growing up, his family has this place, I'm assuming up north.
Which many Michigan families have.
Yeah. Where his dad used to take him fishing, and so that's where he's taking them. It's a bit further away. It'll give them some time.
The music,
yes,
in this on this drive
mm-hmm.
is super cool. It's a track on the score called Lakebound, and it again, we have this very different kind of drippy synth that's very ominous,
mm-hmm.
and I love it.
So they're driving, and Yara is asleep in the passenger side, and Paul is just looking out the window, and
Paul's checking out sleeping Yara. Or not Paul, Greg. Greg is checking out sleeping Yara.
Yeah, we kind of see him checking out the other characters throughout the rest of the movie.
He's kind of a hoe.
Yeah. But Kelly is awake, and we do see her kind of smiling at him from time to time, too. But she's asking him if his mom will freak out about them going up there, and he's like, no, she won't know at all. And so Kelly's like, this is very nice of you. And they show up by this lake, and there's this very big white house. It's really nice, and we see them settling in, and they're like cooking and stuff, and Jay is hanging up the bottles, like the alarms on the windows. And then there's like a shed out back that Greg goes out to, and he finds a gun, and then he's basically teaching Jay like how to shoot the gun, and they're doing like target practice with cereal boxes and stuff.
And she lands 1 out of 6.
Yeah,
which
and
is significant.
He's basically telling her like, I'm right across the street, and she's like, I remember, and he's like, I should have been nicer to you. And then this next scene is just executed so well.
Okay, so it cuts from her doing her target practice to they're on beach chairs, which again, we get like a weird time, like an offset time moment, because they're wearing jackets. They're wearing windbreakers and swimsuits. Greg is fully dressed, but Paul looks like he could jump in the water at any moment. It's such a... They're not dressed like you'd think you would be dressed.
But then when we initially see them driving up, there are leaves everywhere. It looks like an autumn scene. But yeah, it's just that kind of like, oh, this feels kind of off. So... This
is, I feel like, the big scene of the movie. This is the craziness.
Because this is where everyone else kind of experiences it, although they can't see everything. So they're all hanging out, and it's just kind of cutting around.
It cuts to Jay, and then it cuts to Greg and Paul, and then it cuts back, and you see Yara.
It's very still and realistic because no one's really talking to each other, and then we see like Greg and Kelly share a few glimpses, like she looks back and smiles at him, and then he gets up and walks away, and we see
he goes to go to the bathroom. He goes to pee. Yeah.
And then we see Yara in the distance behind Jay just walking up, and of course we don't think of anything because we know this character, we know who Yara is,
and they set it up so we especially don't think twice about it, because when Greg gets up to go pee, he walks right past her. He walks right in front of her. Like, if you saw one of your friends walking towards you and you're on your way to pee, you generally and you walk past them. So, and it's kind of like that.
But yeah, everyone's just kind of, they're hanging out there because it's like no one really knows what to talk about or
how to handle the situation. They're kind of all...
And so, like, we see Yara walking up to them, and then we keep getting glimpses of Paul just kind of looking out at the water, and then he's looking out and we see Yara out in the water,
and she just glides into frame.
She's like, you guys should get in the water, and they all address her like in the water, and they're like, oh, Jay, you want to get in the water? And so Kelly looks back, and we still see Yara walking behind Jay, like coming up to her very slowly.
It gets pretty close.
And then, so Kelly is, turning to look at her sister, and they're all like, yeah, let's get in the water. And then Jay's hair
you can no longer see. Yeah, you can no longer see the Yara behind her. All you see is her hair. Like somebody has a hold of her, like a fistful.
Right here.
Pull it, yeah, like that. Well, when in still mode, it looks like a troll doll. But in the film, it's effectively scary. So Kelly freaks out. Paul gets up, and the only thing he can think of to do is swing one of these lawn chairs in that general direction, and the chair breaks, and then he just gets punted off script. Like, he gets, like, bitch slapped out of frame.
Yeah, so this is where we learn that the entity can still physically hurt people even if they can't see it. Because then we do, in the next scene, see that Paul has this giant, like, welt on his stomach. He's been physically hurt by it, so
which you can assume that it kicked him.
Yeah, so, like, now he and Kelly know for sure that this is real. Like, Jay isn't making this up, so
they run towards this shack, this beachside
like
fishing.
the shed where where Greg got the gun from.
Right. And they lock the door. This is another point where you're like, oh yeah, that's how that would work. That's how that would actually work in real life. She gets the gun down and then starts shooting at it. But on the other side of it is where Greg was peeing. So he, like, ducks behind something and he's like, stop shooting!
And so, yeah, she's shooting it and it's still Yara, and we
it gets hit in the neck.
Yeah, and it does fall down, but then it immediately gets back up.
Can we talk about the face thing? Because the expression never changes. Like, the creepiest part about it is that it is a blank expression the whole time. So it gets shot, and it just goes like this.
So then they're just in the shed, and it's breaking through,
like, it kicks
the door,
a hole in the bottom of the door,
and then Greg is kind of, like, looking through the hole, and he's like, what are you guys doing? There's nothing out there. And then
he says, what did you guys do to my door? And Kelly's like, we didn't do that.
And he's like, there's nothing out here. And then for a brief second, we do see the entity is the giant figure
it
again,
walks past the window as the tall man.
The window, and then Greg goes away, and everyone's kind of freaked out. They're like, is Greg okay? Did it get him? So Jay is kind of slinking towards the hole in the door and calling out to him, and then the neighbor kid who was spying on her earlier and who hit her window with the red ball suddenly shows up as the entity.
But it comes through, and it has, like, boils here. It's got, like, damage to the side of its face, and it lets go, like, a really high-pitched scream, this very animalistic scream.
So he starts to crawl through the hole, and there's, like, another exit, like, you can just slide it open.
For boats.
So you can
pull a boat right in the water.
Jay pulls it open and runs out, and now the entity has changed form again right here. Now it looks like it's Annie, the first victim.
It's wearing heels.
Yeah, the first victim of the movie.
Yeah. Which we kind of mulled over the significance of it being Annie there. I think it's kind of a brag. I've killed, like, the beaches mean nothing. I've done pretty well on beaches. You can run all you want.
I saw it, too, as, like, I'm gonna get you, and I'm gonna go back and get Jeff, because we can only assume that Annie at one point was linked to Jeff, and she might have been the girl in the high school photo
where I wanted to go back and look at that.
Yeah, where
that Paul finds.
They found, like, Hugh's house in that abandoned house, and Paul found the photo of him with the letter jacket. That might have been Annie in the picture, so she might have been, like, his high school girlfriend, and he had, like, passed it on to her. And
or, I mean, in the Annie sense, I still feel like he tried to do this same thing that he did to Jay before. And that's who Annie was. The only difference is with Annie, he didn't fully fill her in on all the rules. That's why he was so intent on filling her in on all the rules before he let her go.
So then Jay is driving off again, and we see a shot again of the friends chasing after the car, and the entity is still walking slowly in the background. Just the shots like that are just so good.
Yeah.
They're so eerie.
Which they run, and I think it's a cool choreography thing that this director does, because the actress playing the entity, the Annie in this sense, is walking, and as the other characters are running after the car, they run around. Like, it's natural looking. Mm-hmm. Like, it's actually how people would run, but they just happen to run around that actress and then in front of it. So it looks like they have no knowledge of it. They just happen to run around it. It's really cool.
Well, now they're all, like, freaked out, too, because they know something is there now, and they can't see it, but it's like they know there is something threatening there that can physically hurt them. But so Jay is like speeding off, and there's a truck pulling out of a driveway, and she veers off the road to avoid hitting it, and she crashes in a cornfield. Mm-hmm. And so the next shot is her waking up in the hospital, and she has a cast on her right arm, and everyone is asleep in the hospital room, like even her mom is there, but Kelly, Yara, Paul, Greg, they're all in there. And so she wakes up, and she's just kind of looking around, realizing where she is, and then she hears footsteps. So she's looking out the doorway, and she's scared because no one else in the room is awake. And in the room is awake. Did I say that right?
No, that's right.
Okay. Sorry.
No, you're right.
I feel like I'm talking faster than I normally do, so I'm not really thinking. So she's freaking out and hearing these footsteps approaching, but then we do see it was a nurse, and so she starts crying, and then the camera is slowly zooming in on Greg. It's kind of foreboding. Yeah, actually,
it's telling you, like, from her point of view, I have to do this.
Yeah, and it's gonna be him.
Yeah,
but so he like,
and I feel like this is again this may have be like a callback to what Jeff did, because she's close to Greg and she understands that would be an easy way to do it. I feel like that may have been a similar situation with those two, if that was his high school girlfriend, and we're shown that they're both out of high school already. Mm-hmm. It may have been an easy, like...
Because Greg is already stepping up and showing that he wants to help out and protect her. Mm-hmm. So he doesn't seem afraid of it at all.
Like, and he's a horny bastard.
Yeah. So he basically wakes up and he sees that she's awake and crying. And then we get, like, this pan across the hospital. Like, we see some staff members that are, rooms. Like, flirting. Like, there's a nurse, like, flirting with another nurse. There's a family in another room, and you see, like, a get well soon sign. And then it keeps panning, and then we see Greg is getting into the hospital bed with Jay, and so she passes it on to him.
During the scene where they're having sex,
she's not enjoying it at all. She's staring up at the ceiling.
No, she's staring at the door.
She starts, like, she's just staring up at the ceiling the whole time, and then she turns, and she's just wide-eyed and staring at the door.
I feel like it's more she feels like she's in a vulnerable position. Mm-hmm. Because what happens if it comes in right then?
Yeah.
Yeah, and she, I mean, it doesn't look like the movie doesn't make it look like an enjoyable mm-hmm. thing.
Yeah. And so then the next, like, few scenes, like, Greg is already, like, flirting with a group of girls, like, at a table in the cafeteria. Mm-hmm. Was this, like, The
college.
school? Okay, I didn't know if it was the hospital
it looks more
cafeteria
It looks more like a college library, like media center kind of place.
But they are still, like, he still goes back to visit her, and we find out it's been 3 days, and he still hasn't seen anything. So then,
Yep,
where did my
I'm
notes
lost in my
leave
notes too.
So then, the next scene, Jay is back home, and she has the cast on her arm, and she's swimming.
She's back in the pool. Yep.
And then she kind of she's staring at the fence.
One of the things that I wanted to revisit was we didn't pay attention to the significance of what's going on, because for some reason now there's a TV outside right by the pool. Mm-hmm. And the audio is clear on it. So in a film like this, that's something that you generally want to pay attention to.
I think it was saying that crews were on scene for a fire or something like that. Huh. They were battling a fire. Huh. But yeah, there's just a TV outside next to the pool, and I don't know, maybe she's waiting to hear, like, bad news about someone dying, because who knows, like, with how Greg is, he could have passed it on to somebody else.
The next day.
Yeah. And so, yeah, she's just swimming, and then she's kind of just staring at the neighbor's fence, because the kid is no longer, like, spying on her.
Yeah.
Maybe he heard that, I don't know.
No, I think
something's weird about her.
I think it's more the idea that because he was already used by it, she cannot be sure whether it's creepy neighbor kid or it. Mm-hmm. So now she's constantly keeping an eye on all her vulnerable areas. Mm-hmm. Like a person who has experienced trauma would. You are constantly watching your back at all your vulnerable points.
Which we do find out she's doing, because even though she passed it on to Greg, she's not doing better. Kelly, Yara, and Paul are sitting on the front porch, and Greg comes over and he's asking how she's doing and if he can go up and see her, and Kelly says no, like, she's locked herself in her room, like, she won't let anybody in, and she's just hiding up there. She's
almost become, like, fully agoraphobic. She doesn't leave. Yeah. She keeps her door locked.
At night, she's just on her bed looking out her bedroom window. She keeps looking out at Greg's house, and then it looks like she's about to fall asleep.
She gives a big yawn, and she starts, like, wobbling a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
And there it is. It looks like Greg in long pajamas.
Yeah.
And it's walking. Here's what I don't understand about this particular part, and I don't know if it's a direction choice or what. It seems to be walking faster than any other iteration as Greg right here. It's almost like power walking right here.
I noticed that too after, when it does show him again, when it's after her, but we'll get to that.
Okay. Here's Greg.
So,
here's it as Greg right here.
Yeah, she's just kind of like, what is he doing? But then we see Greg knocking on his own front door, so we know it's not Greg, it's the entity, because then it takes, like, a rock or brick and throws it into the window.
Okay, it tries to open the door, and then it does, like, a little Michael Myers, and then it walks over, and it kind of knocks on the window, and it takes a step back, and you know, like, when people use, like, volcano rock and things like that around the outside of their window, it's like that. So instead of shrubbery, you just keep some rock there. It takes, and it does it so professionally. It picks up this rock, and it takes a step back, perfectly throws it through the window in one try, and then perfectly, like, whoop, jumps through this window and slides into the house.
This whole segment reminded me a lot of A Nightmare on Elm Street.
Also a Halloween.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of looking down at Michael.
Like, because Glenn, Nancy's boyfriend in A Nightmare on Elm Street, lived right across the street from her.
And
when
he
she knows
asleep,
that he's in danger, it reminded me so much of that. But so basically,
which is funny because this kid looks like Johnny Depp.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like part of it. So I feel like part of it's intentional.
Yeah.
Because if you've never seen the first Nightmare on Elm Street, Nancy's dad, John Saxon, legendary John Saxon, has installed bars on the windows because they think she's gone crazy. She knows that her boyfriend, who lives directly across... He kind of looks like Johnny Depp. Lives directly across the street, has fallen asleep, and she knows he's going to die, so she's doing whatever she can.
Mm-hmm.
And this is... You're right. This is... I hadn't even thought of that.
Yep.
That's perfect.
So Jay runs across the street, and she's first knocking on the door, like calling out to Greg. Well, she tries to call him. That was what else reminded me of A Nightmare on Elm Street. She tries to call first.
Right. But it doesn't quite work out the same because her phone doesn't lick her face.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like the same, kind of thing. So she crawls in through the window and runs upstairs, and we see Greg's mom in the hallway, and she's just knocking.
It's like,
robotically.
Yeah. And this scene it's great. Like, when you talk about artistic direction and
mm-hmm.
like 15 to 10 seconds of film meaning so much at once, this is exactly what our show's made for. Because it is knocking on the door, and it is a monotonous, like, single knock, boom, 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 boom. Which, in the sense, could be two things. We're hearing the knock on the door and also this very heavy beating of Jay's heart because she knows there's nothing
mm-hmm.
she can do about it. And she's like, don't open, she's screaming, don't open your door. So what's this fucking idiot do? He just like, Mom, what the fuck?
Well, first, the entity stops for a quick second and looks at her.
Uh-huh. It's a very your next moment.
Yeah, I'm really surprised Greg's mom wouldn't wake up. That was just one thought that I had.
But there's also been like allusions to the idea that sometimes she's not even there. Like, these parents are around, but they're absent.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not out of the question.
So yeah, he opens the door, and we finally see what happens when this thing kills
I don't know if it's every time. I don't know if it's like this.
I'm pretty sure, because if we think about Annie's body, what it looked like, there was definitely like a struggle.
Yeah.
And we do see the way she's holding his arm, it almost looked like she was gonna break it.
Yeah.
But basically, yeah, it's
a sexual act.
Him, and
it kills him in what looks like a sexual act,
mm-hmm.
but also is a very like stealing of his life essence.
Mm-hmm.
It fucks the life out of him, literally. Like, but there is no sexual contact because the actual point of sexual contact is shown, and there's
mm-hmm.
nothing there.
Yeah, because he still has like his clothes on,
and it does too.
Yeah,
but the act itself is very erotic looking. It's very intimate looking.
Yeah.
And then he's shown his sunken cheeks and his eyes are
like
bulging
instantly,
out. Yeah.
Like he's blue already.
Yep.
But so Jay runs out again and gets in the car, and
in his car. She steals his car.
We see the entity as Greg again, but he is moving faster. He kind of just turns quickly, like coming after her already.
And which is one of my questions. Why now is it moving so much faster?
Mm-hmm.
And the idea that this thing thinks is up for debate, because Jeff is very adamant that it thinks, and it is spiteful.
Mm-hmm.
But everything else you see from it, like the way it acts and the way it moves, is very robotic and very direct. So that makes a difference in how you react to it.
Mm-hmm.
In the instance of the Greg iteration of it, I feel like it's the director showing us not only is this thing emotionally damaging, but also thinks in a sense of urgency.
Mm-hmm.
I just killed him and you're right there. I can move faster. I just choose not to.
Maybe it is also because it has briefly touched her already too. It did grab her by the hair in that one scene, and it was like, so it has already touched her. So
like an excitement.
Yeah. Maybe.
Which, if you have all the time in the world, urgency doesn't matter. Which may be why it never really has to move any faster than a walk.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing that says that it can't break out and do a full sprint. But why if it has all the time in the world?
Mm-hmm.
So I believe that's where we left it.
Yep, that's where we're gonna leave off tonight, and then
Woo,
our next
only an hour and 45 minutes. Cut that one short.
Our next episode will be the conclusion.
The conclusion of It Follows.
Mm-hmm.
Are you familiar? What's next week's segments?
Let me check. I think we made this week a surprise, but we can talk about. So, we'll conclude with our analysis of It Follows. Our Seen Again movie will be a movie that you're more familiar with.
I forgot what our schedule is. You have it.
It is The Replacement Killers.
Ooh! John Woo!
Our themes to be heard will be Enjoy the Silence by Depeche Mode.
There's a crowd. Yeah, so, but you are also familiar with John Woo films.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And Chow Yun-fat.
Mm-hmm.
So, to our viewers, don't think that, like, oh, Matt picked an action movie and Tara doesn't care about them. Tara is actually extremely well versed in John Woo film, and also is a fan of Chow Yun-fat, the traditionalist martial arts film styles. She actually does have an appreciation for. So don't count her out. She knows what she's talking about.
So yeah, like for instance, John Woo's film The Killer is.
Don't we have this back here too?
Yes, we have The Killer. Is inspired heavily by Le Samurai, which is one of my Criterion Collection movies.
French hitman named Jeff.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so that's gonna be. We have the replacement kit. Oh,
it's in here somewhere.
Mira Sorvino. No, it's right there.
Oh.
I don't know if everybody can see because the camera's kind of facing away from it a little bit, but we literally have a little movie store here. It's kind of nice that we can have all our movies looking like we're at Family Video again. So, I think that's where we're going to leave it.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you for joining us. I'm Matt Klaus.
I'm Tara Kostick. Think pink and have a sparkling week.
Adopt. Do not